Hello again, folks. Kevin Inoue here with Fight Designer LLC, PewTube, Case Western, SAFD, other associations, affiliations. All right, so I promised I'd get back to some more new products, and so here we are. What I want to talk about today, this is just going to be sort of the first peek. It's not a true unboxing because I cheated and I looked ahead of time. These are already up on my website. I tend to cruise eBay looking for deals on screen used props and things like that. And one thing that caught my eye was a new brand of blank gun that I hadn't really seen on the market in the US before, popping up a number of different eBay stores for kind of ridiculous amounts of money, $200 to $400, which, I've certainly seen that for some of the kinds that I know you can't get in this country anymore, like the Zeraki 917s or some of the Umarex models. But it seemed a bit much. And so I looked it up, and sure enough, you can actually get these in the US, and they retail for like $90. So there's no reason you should be spending like $250, $300 on these. But this is a brand that was new to me. Baredda, and I have no idea if I'm saying that right or not, but I'll give you a little close-up here in a sec. Now these are just fresh out of the box. Obviously I haven't painted over the orange tips yet or anything like that, but I was curious about them. I'm not going to be firing them today because I don't have a good way to do that right now without freaking out the neighbors and family members upstairs and all that other stuff. But hopefully at some point in here I'll get a chance to test fire these and I can compare their reliability to some of the other brands out there right now, like Retay and Kimar and Bruni and all that. So I've got two of these to look at today, and I want to compare them to sort of their closest parallels from other blank gun makers that I'm aware of. So the first one is this Baredda S56. Now, to me, this is pretty clearly trying to be sort of an equivalent to the CZ75. And I have one of these from Kimar. Actually, I have two of them, but I have one in a black finish that's fairly comparable. I've had to take it out of rotation because one of the grips broke and got lost, and I haven't replaced it yet. Now, you've probably heard me rant about Kimar before. I'd put it maybe a little step above Bruni, but they're both pretty unreliable. But as you can see, these are pretty similar models. I've got to say, if we're going old school, and I chose to, they had different finishes on this, but since I've been doing some more old school stuff, I do tend to prefer at least the fake wood grips over the black plastic on some of this when I can. But aesthetically, not that different. We've got a lot more similarities than differences, really, between these two versions of the CZ75. Obvious functional differences, besides the fact that the rear sight got lost on this Kimar because it was separate, and it's molded in on the Bareida, so there's no way that that's going to actually get lost. It's just confusing saying Bareida. It sounds too much like Bareida. I'm gonna get some folks confused that way. The Kimar is obviously a side vent 8mm because that was the way that most of these were originally available in the US. I think you can get some of these in front vent now, but it has these two pretty amateur-looking drilled holes up here, and that's where that actually vents. It is a plugged barrel. Nothing comes out the front. The Baredda is a front vent, as most of the newly available blank guns are these days. Front vent 9mm PAK, and it's kind of interesting how they chose to do the colored tip. Everybody does them a little bit different, and sometimes different generations from the same maker will do them different. But there seems to be just like maybe 18 gauge, if not thinner, little bit of sheet metal on the front of that. That is the orange. But it does also extend to the inside, so it's not clear to me yet if I can completely remove this without it changing the function. I'd have to figure out if there's a restrictor upstream of it as well. So I will hopefully be able to check in on that later, but in the meantime, if nothing else, you can always sand these off and paint them if you have the proper approvals to do so for theater and film work. Overall feel, build quality, not bad. It's not a Umarex, but I'd say it's at least as good as the Kimar. The finish is a little rougher, a little less shiny. I would love it if some of these more old school models were actually blued. I think that would be gorgeous, but instead this is your pretty standard kind of cheap finish, Duracoat, whatever. It is a double action or single action. as with the Kimar, right? You can either cock it or you can fire it. As with the Kimar, it does have a functional thumb safety. Both of them, the safety does work. Hammer does not drop if safety is engaged. Hammer does drop if safety is not. You know, it's all pretty standard. The sights are not great looking, but they'd work cosmetically. I don't know that I would actually want to aim with these. Let's take a look at how it cycles. So again, I'm not going to actually fire these right now, but I'm going to use a spent casing just to see how it cycles. Magazine base plate seems to be staying fairly well. There's a little wobble there. I'd be worried that it's not coming off. So that cycled just fine. I don't have a like a Kydex CZ75 holster to test fit for right now to know if that would work, how close it is to the original, nor is that a model that I have an actual firearm of. So that's a little bit of a hard thing to compare. It comes in the pretty standard cases. We've all seen these, and as you know, the latches will eventually break. This one actually arrived a little bit broken. They're cheap. They're basically disposable. I've got a huge box of them that I sometimes use when I'm mailing props, but I don't count on them to do much. And it does have instructions, which are in, I think, Turkish. I'm not entirely sure. Certainly not English. Holds 14 rounds. It does include instructions for field stripping, which is interesting because, again, I often don't bother field stripping blank guns. Maybe that's because I started with the non-front venting ones where you couldn't clear out the barrel anyway. With a real gun, when you field strip it, the barrel is a separate unit that comes out, and it's very easy to clean it down that way. With blank guns, the barrel is molded into the frame. That's one of the things that makes them not readily convertible. So field stripping it is less useful to cleaning. And you know, sometimes it's going to be just a way to lose some of the springs and parts, which makes it counterproductive. You know, if anything, it's going to get worse, not better, when you do that. But in the interest of curiosity, is this pin coming out? Is that what it is? So there we go. For those of you who don't have to worry about not being able to read the instructions, this pin pulls out on the side, and that lets you field strip it. And you can see how the barrel is all molded in. So there is an obstruction. I can see sort of a little X obstruction, but that's not the same as the restrictor. It looks like it might actually still need this tip, so I'm gonna not count on being able to remove that entirely anytime soon. But this, the fact that this is encouraged in the instructions and seems to not spend any small springs flying or anything, does imply that field stripping it might be something you could do on a regular basis to help keep it a little cleaner. Oops. So this is also why you want to do this when you're not on set. Panicking. There we go. Yeah, so you need something else to be able to push the rear end of that guide rod forward enough that it doesn't block this pin. And now everything is reassembled and back to the way it should be. So this is the Baredda S56, again available in a number of different finishes. I just have the black with the brown grips. But from all appearances, I think it'll be sturdier certainly than the Kimar one, which, you know, the rear sight lost. I've you know, lost the plastic grip. I've had some other issues with some of these. I've got a silver one as well. And it gives you the top vent option. So moving on to number 2. This one, it's the Mod Z88. And if you see this on eBay or whatever, they'll probably try and tell you all kinds of crazy things like, oh, it's a Glock or it's a whatever. It's a P99. Like, this is totally a Walther P99 ripoff, right? So the thing about the Walther P99s is we have a good one out there already. Umarex makes one. For a while, it was readily available in the US in black or this sort of silver finish, originally in top vent and then in front vent as well. And then they stopped importing all Umarex blank guns. It made me so sad. But this was one of the most readily available of the Umarex blank guns. And I have a number of them, and I love them. What I don't like is that in the top vent version, they did this stupid cutout in the slide. So the top vent, the hole is right here, and I guess it's so that as the slide travels, the hole is still not obstructed. Get a little something in there so you can see. Boop. Right. So the hole, this was a prop for a staged reading I did where I was supposed to be smoking a joint. It's just a rolled up receipt. The vent stays lined up with that notch as it goes. So they only did this on the front vent versions, thankfully, and I don't tend to use those for movies as much anyway. Or the top vent. The front vent ones, the slide is solid. But I only have those in black, not in silver, so I figured visually it wasn't as good a comparison. So let's take a look at this Baredda Z88 versus the Walther P99. Obviously, Umarex has the advantage of full trademarks, especially for film close-ups, so that can make a big difference. But otherwise, you know, it's not bad. Build quality, I'd put this on a par with some of the Retays. The finish isn't quite as nice. Again, it's kind of a rougher, almost spray painted-y kind of finish compared to a smoother one on the Umarex Walther slides. The plastic is, you know, about the same. Ergonomically, I don't really feel any difference. I'm not sure that if I picked one up in the dark, I'd know which was which. They're very similar, very good copy. I would rank it up there with a lot of the non-licensed airsoft gas blowbacks in terms of realism. And this one was also available in a number of different finishes, but since I didn't have a front vent with a silver finish, I think I figured I'd go with that. So I already have front vent in the black finish. So apart from the lack of trademarks, otherwise controls are about the same. You know, it's got the ambidextrous mag release. It does have a decocker. Now, unlike on the Umarex where this is flush, the decocker on this one actually kind of sticks up a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. It sticks up a little, whereas on the Umarex it's nice and flush. On the Baredda it sticks up just a little. So I'm a little less a fan of that. This is a 9mm PAK, same as the Umarex. So there's really no indicator when it's cocked, which is one thing I don't like a whole lot about this model. But you can hear the decocker when it takes action. Right, so that's the decocking action. This, I believe, can be single or double action. Yep. So works single or double action. Decent slide release. You know, it feels all right. Where's that sound? Yeah, similar. You know, honestly, very, very similar. A little less attention to detail. Again, the sights are molded in. The nice part is that means they're never going to get lost, but they just don't look as good. The front and rear sights on the Umarex are definitely nicer made. But otherwise, super, super similar. Now this one, the owner's manual is actually in English. I don't know why, at least it's provided in English. I don't know, Zamac alloy. I don't know what Zamac alloy is. But similar, you know, they have instructions for how to field strip it. They have the stats, all that stuff. But this time you can actually read it if you don't read Turkish or whatever it was. Same kind of cheap and chintzy case. But, you know, in terms of bang for your buck, when we are talking about things that are designed to make a bang, assuming this functions okay, I think it's a pretty good deal. Now, will it function okay? I guess we'll find out. Because price and build quality seems to be comparable to the Retays, so I think this could be a decent competitor, especially if they have some decent models that the Retay does not, such as the P99. It's no Umarex, but I think it'll do, and I look forward to testing them out and finding out more. Considering that the Umarex P99s are now nigh impossible to get, and even when you can, they're going to run probably in the 150 to 250 range, I would guess right now, and that you can get these for under 100 plus shipping, I think it's an awesome deal. Of course, this is all contingent on them actually working and being reliable as blank firing props. And will they be? We'll find out. I'm gonna have to hit you up with that in another video when I have a chance to take these somewhere where I can fire them.